Right then, we're going to do the A2 CFC versus the GVC and CA Operational Authorization, PDRA01, pros and cons to both. We will start with the A2 CofC. Now, the A2 CFC pros, it's cheap training. There is nothing cheaper. However, it then gives you 50 metres horizontal separation with current aircraft over 500 grams to 2 kilos, and these are legacy aircraft until 2023. Now, if you're flying with an aircraft that weighs between 250 grams and 500 grams, as long as you do no overflight of uninvolved people, you're fine. You can fly a lot better, if you like, or a lot less restrictions. We will have the 1-to-1 rule with C2 aircraft, but that is when they appear. We'll get onto that later. So if you're 10 metres high, you must have 10 metres horizontal separation from all uninvolved people. So that's nice and simple. And that is 360 degrees around the aircraft. So those are the pros. Now, the cons of the A2 CFC. It's cheap training. Everyone has it. Everyone suddenly thinks they're a drone expert. Now, you're going to have a new aircraft, and that's required come 2023. So, think about it for a second. Your training has been really cheap. Everyone has it. However, as of 2023, you've got to have this C2 marked aircraft. So, if the Mavic 3 was C2 rated, now think about it, if it was C2 rated, that's how much? That's a small fortune. So you would have to buy something like a Mavic 3, and then your investment in the A2 CFC has suddenly gone through the roof. So it's very, very interesting in that respect. Now, the A2 CFC never allows overflight of people at all. Now, looking at this, we've got a Fly More combo. I thought I'd go and just check the pricing. I didn't want to get it wrong. So, if you wanted a Mavic 3 Fly More combo and it was a C2 rated aircraft, and it isn't right now, so we don't know if retrospective markings will happen or not, but that's £2,500 you would have to spend on a new aircraft come 2023 if the Mavic 3 was the only aircraft available. And that's the Fly More pack, so you got extra batteries. So that's quite crazy. And again, there's no overflight permitted of uninvolved people. While yes, the 1-to-1 rule will exist, so at 30 metres high, you have to have 30 metres horizontal separation from uninvolved people, and you cannot overfly uninvolved people. And that's one of the niggles with the A2 CFC. Now, for the GVC. Now, the GVC has a few pros to it. It allows you to fly anywhere and overfly. This is the important bit to understand. As long as you have permission for the airspace you're in, you're allowed to fly anywhere and overfly uninvolved protected people. The only thing you have to avoid is assemblies of unprotected assemblies of people. So large crowds, a lot of people on a beach, an event of some kind. However, in a built-up area, you can overfly people's houses. You can be, as long as you're higher than 50 metres from uninvolved people, overfly is permitted. Now, for takeoff and landing, this is actually reduced to 30 metres. And you have to remember, to get up to 50 metres and get down to 30 metres from uninvolved people, if you, in your risk assessment, you do it right, and you're saying, right, all our flight operations are taking place at 80 metres high, for example, between taking off and getting to 80 metres, that bubble around the aircraft only has to be 30 metres big, because you do not enter flight until you're at operational flying height. So it gives you a lot of leeway. People say, oh, you can't use it for house inspections or building inspections. Well, you can, because you're going to go, as you're going up to those 30 metres, up to those 80 metres high, people forget the camera, taking photos can all be done on the way up. So as you're going up past your subject for your inspection, take all the images flying up nice and slowly, because you can fly in a slow speed mode. Grab the images you need for one part, stop when you get to 80 metres or 60 metres, depending what you've put in your risk assessment. Hover for a second and then descend and do it all again. So that's the really important bit. Now it's 50 metres horizontal separation from assemblies of people again. And this is the really important bit about the GVC. Any aircraft can be flown at sub 25 kilos. So C markings do not apply to the GVC. So we won't have to go and buy a Mavic 3. You can have an Inspire 2, you can have an M200, you can have an M300, you can have a Mavic 2 Pro, one of the most solid aircraft to fly, a Mavic 4 Pro. These aircraft can all be flown under the GVC well beyond 2023. So C markings do not apply. However, there's going to be some cons somewhere, isn't there? So let's look at them. So the GVC also needs a CAA operational authorization, and it's PDRA01, so Predetermined Risk Assessment 01. The CAA have decided, or YASA have decided, that as we used to call it, the PFCO and so on, that has been around for a long time. No one's been died, no one's been killed, there's not been a mass of bodies everywhere. So they've decided that will be PDRA01. Basically, just about the same as the PFCO. There's a subtle difference, so read it when you get it. And it gives you these extra bits, but it does cost money. So the GVC is going to cost you money. Then the CA operational authorization, that's going to cost you some money. Now combined, it's going to cost you around £600 to £700 now. And that's not too bad. Back in the day when I did it, the course alone for the PFCO-GVC, that was £1,500 I spent. So it's a lot less now. So for under £1,000, you can still keep flying, and you can fly in a built-up area and be fine. And you don't have to buy a new aircraft in 2023. That £2,500 you're going to have to buy for a C2 Mavic 3, to use the one-to-one rule for example, doesn't matter to you, because you've got a GVC, so, and a PDRA 01 with it, so it doesn't matter. What you can do, if a group of you got together, like-minded, and you could decide how to do it, you could get your own PDRA and just list 4 or 5 pilots in it, so you can get together with a few mates and spread the cost. However, there is one thing you still have to do, and it's paperwork. The only thing with a GVC is there's a bit of paperwork. You'll have a site assessment to do and a risk assessment and pilot logs. And to be honest, any A2 CFC operator, if you're doing stuff commercially, you're going to be doing basic stuff like that already. The operations manual is basically like a method statement. All it does is say how you're going to work through each thing. So for the weather, it'll tell you to do a weather check the day before. You'll check the weather before you take off. You do this with the A2 CFC anyway. The only thing is, you've got a manual that tells you. You want to know about an ATC's telephone number. Often or not, in your ops manual, there'll be a link to where you can get that information from. So that's what it just basically lays out in your operations manual. However, the worst thing of all is dealing with the CA's website. The amount of operators I know, and we pay, we're paying for the service. Don't get me wrong, the CA, they're very good. They can be a bit pedantic at times, like if your ops manual says version 1.0 and then somewhere else it says version 1, they don't like it. If you don't put the 0.0 in, they get very pedantic about things like that. But that being said, the CA website, when you're uploading your manuals and stuff, can be horrendous. Dealing with that can be a nightmare. and it's not very clear when you're trying to select certain things. A lot of people I'm aware of they just want to shoot themselves after dealing with it. However, for £250 a year for your first time when you go for your CA operational authorisation, that's great. Every renewal after that is slightly less. I think it's about £190 to £200. So for £200 a year, once you've got your GVC, you can fly any aircraft you want. All your legacy aircraft, you're fine with them, which is one of the biggest pros going. Right, hopefully that's giving you a little bit of an insight into the pros and the cons of the A2 CFC and versus the GVC. For me, the GVC wins all day long. I do hold a GVC, and I hold it for fixed wing and multi-rotor. If you go and do your GVC for the first time, there will be a flight test. Don't worry about it. Most of the REEs are really good. They'll tell you exactly what you want. You'll do what they've asked you to do, and you should be fine. And it does prove you're competent, unlike the A2 CFC, which doesn't prove anything, to be honest. If you look at the amount of people that have said stuff on Facebook or Reddit and they're missing half the stuff out, it's quite interesting. So I don't really have a lot good to say about the A2 CFC because there's no flight test as well. Where the GVC, there is a flight test, so your skills will be tested. They don't test them harshly, but they just give them a bit of a test. If you can fly, you'll be fine. And that's it, kind of thing, really. But yeah, so the GVC wins for me. And then you can go beyond the GVC. There's meant to be bolt-ons coming. And your GVC is like your A2 CFC. Both of them will last 5 years from the date you get it. So if you've got a GVC and there's a company wanting a pilot, and you don't even have to have a operational authorization, PDRA1, you can just go, oh, I've got a GVC, I can fly, and they will look at your flight and your GVC certificate, ask for your pilot log probably, and that helps show that you're a competent pilot, and you've got more chance of getting that job then, because you can show what you can do. Right, I think that's it for my A2 CFC and GVC. The GVC bolt-ons, we don't know what's coming yet. I've heard a few things. They've made me smile, like extended visual line of sight. That's quite amusing to me. BV loss might come, but back in the olden days we had that under the old PFCO, but they had to send it back to the sandbox, so I've got video on that somewhere. I'm waffling now as well, aren't I? Right, I'll leave you all to it. Safe flying, everyone. Have a good one.